By far the safest landing is to land down on the beach into the wind, but with practice you can land back in the setup area. Lee is about to demo a landing from the south. He crosses behind the corner dune, fades back behind the wire fence, adjusts his elevation and speed, gets a little unexpected pop, pulls in a bit, and uses the toe dragging method to slow down. Note that no aggressive flare was necessary. Here's another view of Lee's landing. You can see how far back behind the fence he fades. Maybe 30 to 40 feet. He pulls in. There's that pop. But he keeps the nose up just enough to bleed off that downhill speed. Pulling in too aggressively on the downhill increases the speed and just makes stopping harder. Here's another landing from the south. This approach is not recommended when winds are southy unless your goal is to turn 180 and land down on the beach. If your goal is to land at the top of the setup, southy winds will add a downward component to your final. So here's the same fade back behind the corner and behind the fence. The turn back to head across the setup. Pull in to get down on the deck. And a little skitter landing, 1 foot extended and knee slightly bent. Some pilots prefer landing from the north, that is, from the ramp. This approach crosses over the parking lot and behind the glider setup, but after that it's essentially the same landing. This is the same landing viewed from the ramp. Note the path cuts diagonally across the parking lot. The turn is initiated behind the setup, onto final nice and low, well behind the little fence, but try not to land back there. Nose up just enough to slow down but not pop up, and a perfect little skitter stop. Here's the pilot's view of landing from the north, starting a bit behind the ramp. He crosses the parking lot deep, and if the winds aren't too strong, more than 18, you can initiate your turn about 75 feet behind the setup. He gets down, skimming across the deck. He's well behind the little rope fence, angling across the setup to a gentle touchdown. It's time to leave the setup and head south. Here's a beach launch left, paralleling the fence, aiming for the corner, keeping the left wing on top, and heading down the little dunes. Now keep in mind that pilots returning from the south have right-of-way. As you fly down, keep your body positioned directly over the crest and try to gain as much altitude as you can before you get to the dirty gap. This is a shot from down the beach looking back toward the ramp. Dennis has left the ramp dune, crossed the setup gap, and made the corner. Check out the windsock. It looks strong, probably 18 plus, and the way he's getting bounced around, the air looks a little ratty, maybe plus or minus 4. And note the beach debris, especially if you plan on landing here. And just because he has a lot of altitude doesn't mean crossing the dirty gap is going to be a breeze, especially if he's flying into a strong south headwind. Well, it looks like he made the North Dune corner well enough to slide across the face and stay above the little bumps on the other end. This is where you may find yourself getting a little low, but stick with it, stay on the dune, and you'll make it. From here, it gets much easier. We hope this brief little intro proves useful. And now it's time for you to come on out and fly Marina.
Just too lazy to run. Right. Left. Clear. Altitude is irrelevant. Tearing up the sky with Georgie Boy.
Drone voice by Wasson at 2 a.m.
Stefan wouldn't have sounded so monotone had he been able to make all these sound files 24 hours later. Here he is the next day at the beach, just minutes after hitting the illustrious 1,000 hours of soaring mark. You can be assured he had a lot more energy that night.